So, ethical problems can arise at any time during the investigation. To visualize this situation more clearly, I have divided problems that can arise into three moments: at the time of the planning, the investigation, at the time of executing, and finally at the time of finish or disseminate the research. Of all these moments, those that occur first are the easiest to catch. Usually, the ethics committee detects problems and suggests some corrections and changes to ensure compliance with the principles that govern research on human beings. And that they ensure that all the ethical requirements appear explicitly in the research protocol. We have discussed this previously, where researchers, for example, must ensure that they respect the ethical principles by complying with a set of ethical requirements. It is during the conduct and dissemination of results that problems commonly arise. So, the following problems may occur during the investigation. In first place, the invention of data. We saw the example with the Norwegian researcher, and this is also called a data fabrication, and on sometimes it is very difficult to catch. Unfortunately, well, I mean, unfortunately, it is something that the data indicate is on the rise, considering that there is more and more pressure to generate research results that results in degrees, promotions, and of course, prestige. Secondly, the data manipulations refers to the skillful use of data analysis techniques in order to support research ideas or hypotheses. For example, in this case, a good protocol should limit this problem by clearly stating how the data will be analyzed and indicating, for example, what will be done with patients with incomplete data or patients with extreme values. The p-fishing is one form of the above. In this case, the researchers goes to the statistician once the study is finished and ask him or her to run a series of tests, and some of these tests will not maybe doesn't make in much sense, but the issues or problems start to arise when the researcher started to select those where he obtained, for example, some significant values and to discover others. This can be solved like the above with a good protocol. Also, the post hoc story refers to the fact that some research may find unexpected findings in which the researcher may turn his or her interest, discarding the original purpose of their research. For example, it could be that, for example, a team is investigating the effect of a drug on a type of cancer. They discovered that the drug has no effect or whatsoever, but they notice that patients show some improvement in some unforeseen aspect, for example, decreased baldness. So instead of planning a study to verify that observation that arise from this study, the researchers decided to publish a study indicating that the original goal was to evaluate the drug effect on patients' baldness. And this is wrong. So another common ethical issue in research is about the inappropriate use of literature. And this refers to the systematic selection of those references that support the results. And when the researchers start to discard some papers or articles that doesn't support his or her hypothesis. Then, finally, in this part of the research, the alteration of protocol consists of significantly modifying a protocol approved by an ethics committee in order to change the question or the method of the research. Well, and here, while there are always alterations to a research protocol, such as, for example, the dates, there are other kind of changes that are significant and may require the ethics committee to revise the ethical relevance of the research again. The solution here is to report any changes to the ethics committee so that if it can decide whether or not is a minor or major change to consider. And some major modifications are, for example, the change of objective, the change of methods, the change in the change in the number of patients, or in the change in the research group. Most of these issues are solved with a detailed and comprehensive protocol. And finally, a research may have been approved by an ethics committee, can be carefully and truthfully executed, but the final step is the ethical dissemination of the results. And most of these issues are resolved with a set in a with a very clear and very detailed research protocol. But what happens after this research has been carried may appear that the problems that can be found at the end of this of our investigation are first of all exaggeration. This usually happens by confusing the statistical significance with clinical significance. For example, research may find that there are, for example, a statistical difference in clinical, for example, in two treatments at a very, very small scale, that maybe there is not from any clinical significance. For example, from 1 million patients, maybe one is safe, but this can also be by chance. But if you run this test, and statistical test with such high numbers, it's very usual to find some statistical significance, but this maybe is likely not clinical significant at all. Another common problem is redundant publication. For example, the research can, in this case, the research can evaluate the quality of life of the adults when using, for example, a certain type of prosthesis. However, when deciding to publish the results, the researcher may choose to split up the research and make several publications. One focus, for example, in the quality of life in men, and the other in quality of life in women, or worse, to publish the same research twice. So this is redundant publication. The following problems are related and concerned to the authorship. It may be that a research group decided to include, for example, the head of the departments just because he or she is the head. Such is a case of is called corporate authorship. Another problem is phantom authorship. In this situation, a pharmaceutical company is interested in introducing, for example, a new toothpaste, for example. But in order to do so, it must discredit the traditional toothpaste. To do so, employees of the company write a review article, and then it's sent to a researcher who is known, for example, because he or she has a lot of prestige. He appears as the main author, but actually was the people of the company who wrote the article. So the penultimate ethical problem is a conflict of interest. And this situation occurs when, for example, a team of university researchers published the result of a study showing that a substance is effective against some disease. At the time of signing the article, all of them identified themselves as members of an academic institution. But one or maybe all of them either hold the patent or for the substance for this new drug, or have some kind of relationship with the company. For example, they have some stocks. The problem arises when the researchers fail to disclose this potential conflict of interest. So, to have stocks in a pharmaceutical company or to work for a pharmaceutical companies doesn't inhibits a person to carry and publish research, but to disclose this relation is may may be a ethical issue. And finally, as serious as and this is as serious as all the above, occurs when the researcher decided not to publish. And this actually masks a much bigger problem, which is that this is called the selective publication, where researchers or companies decided what to publish and what not to publish. And there is a very interesting talk by Ben Goldacre at TED, where he talks in detail about the nefarious effect of this problem. But what is the frequency of this problem in dentistry, for example? In this regard, Beaver and Davis conducted a research in '96 where they surveyed, they asked researchers attending a conference, asking if they have witnessed any ethical problems during their work. About 60% of them responded positively, and of this, the most common problem was conflicts of authorship, followed by questionable interpretation of data, undeclared conflicts of interest, and plagiarism. So, here are some frequently asked questions that you need to consider when you're planning a research. First, if the research needs the approval of an ethics committee. And secondly, and in this case, if the research requires the participation of individuals, in this case, it's almost certainly that requires an independent ethics committee to give its approval. Moreover, the very fact that you have the doubt actually suggests that it does. However, when in doubt, it is the best behavior here is that you should apply for the ethics committee review and discuss your situation. And second, there are some situations where you may not need some ethics committee approval. For example, if you use freely available public data, if your observations doesn't include human data, or if this is, for example, a research on educational practice. But anyway, the important thing here is that you must apply, and is the ethics committee who will grant the necessity or not of the ethical approval. So an ethics committee can also dispense this necessity. So here's the link to for the information about the ethics committee of the Riga Stratins University. So, so in this case, all research which is done by students or professor or any academics or any person related to the university should apply to this committee. In the web page, there is information about all required documentations and some social special form. So here are the reference, and here are some, and you can download from the link. And thank you very much for your time.